Hey family, it's Ray and I'm back with another word. I pray that you guys have been blessed and I pray this word finds you well. So this word is going to be pertaining to kingdom marriages, kingdom spouses, and the title of this word is Prepare to be Presented. And this word comes from a dream that the Lord gave me on January 13th of this year. I'm going to get into this dream. I had a dream with someone from work. Her name is Stephanie. So I remember we were looking over work, like pieces of work, pieces of paper, and it seemed like maybe projects or something that was going on display. And we were looking over the work that these people were going to present. And I remember her telling me to call someone and say something along the lines of, we just want to make sure they're prepared and presentable because he's coming today. It seemed like it was supposed to be a call for last minute or final revisions to make sure they were fully prepared for their work to be presented. And that was a dream. And so first of all, the Lord led me to look up the name Stephanie. Like I said, this is the girl who was in this dream with me. Her name is Stephanie. And so he let me look up that name, and it means crown or garland, denoting honor, victory, and wisdom. Okay, and so he broke this down for me into two groups. So the first group would be for like people in their area in their lives of work, business, career, and opportunities, things like that. And the other group was for marriages, kingdom spouses, and these unions. As the Lord was breaking his dream down for me, he gave me the message first, and then he reminded me of a dream that I had in 2021. And so in this dream, the man and woman were together in the backseat of a car. Then I just saw a shift to where the woman was walking on a path by herself, and she looked back at the man. And this time he was sitting in the passenger seat of the car instead of before them both sitting in the back seat. He looked like he was scared or he was shocked. Like, if I can find the emoji, I'll put it in here. And so it was like he was surprised or he didn't know or expect what was happening, which seemed to be her walking away. So this denotes a separation. As she was walking on this path, it looked like maybe like a dirt road. So kind of reminded me like a wilderness or something like that. And she had a GPS in her hand. It was on her phone, and it said 22 minutes and 2 miles. So at that point, it highlighted to me 222. And as she walks further down along this path, I see other women, like 2 other women ended up on this path with her as well. They looked at the GPS and then they turned around. They seemed like they were skeptical about walking this path. And so now the dream shifted to a new scene. Now the dream is in a hotel setting. At first the dream is inside of a room where the size is like a regular room or suite. The women were walking around the room trying to figure out what was going on. They tried to leave out, but as one of them went to the door to open the door to leave, there were more women standing at the door and walked in once she opened the door. So now that there were more women that came into this room, the room shifted to a different size, equivalent to now the size of maybe a conference room or meeting room that they have in hotels. It holds more people. So the women were still talking amongst each other, trying to figure out what was going on. Their energy was very unsettled, rowdy, that type of vibe. And so in this dream, now I was in this dream, I left out the room and was headed to the bathroom. And in the hallway, I ran into my spouse. In this dream, my spouse was like, he wouldn't look at me. And so I pulled him into the bathroom and I like grabbed his face and turned his face to me. And so when I turned his face to me, it was like a light now, like a light shed on his face. And then his face turned into a different image, which essentially was something being revealed to me that I wasn't seeing, which is also why he could not face me, which is also why he wasn't looking at me, right? So that revelation was insight to me concerning our separation. So again, I said at the beginning of this dream, that kind of denoted the woman looking back at the spouse and her now walking on this path and him sitting in the front seat denoted separation. So now the dream shifts back to the hallway, and I was walking back down the hallway back to the room where the women were, and I just saw a whole line of men. And so these men were standing outside of the room that the women were in. I peeped into the door, and the men were really loud outside in the hallway. And it was like the volume of the noise from the amount of men who were in the hallway spoke to how many of these spouses are about to come into union. So before I opened the door to let the men in, I told them to be quiet. So it's like I was preparing them to be a surprise because the women inside the room didn't know the men were outside, literally on the other side of the door. So before I let the men in, I gathered the women. I gathered their attention, and they were all still a little rowdy, like I said in earlier scenes where everyone was riled up and unsettled as if they were trying to find answers and understanding. So as I stood at the door, I began talking to the women, and it seemed like I was giving them instructions as it pertains to accepting these men back. Again, at this point, the women didn't know the men were right outside the door yet, so I was kind of preparing them for these men that were about to enter in, giving them instruction as to how to welcome them back, and the instructions were to listen, forgive, and be compassionate. Don't be aggressive and volatile and angry and confrontational towards them when they return. Be gentle and compassionate, ready to listen, hear them out, and be ready to forgive. Now, as I mentioned before, these room sizes had changed every time in proportion to the amount of women who occupy the spaces. So now in this scene, the room size in this scene was about the size of maybe like a ballroom, in comparison to the previous scene where I said it was maybe the size of like a conference or meeting room, which means there were even more women in this phase. So once I said these things, the women kind of calmed down a little bit, like they were now curious or like pondering like what I was saying. So everyone sat down, and then I let them in. Every woman had a huge smile on her face, and it's like the aggression and rowdiness melted away, like their hearts softened at the sight of these men. Each man walked to their respective wives and stood behind the chair that they were sitting in, and then that was a dream. So now I'm going to get into the message. So I'm hearing now, your reward, your work is being rewarded. Something that you have been working on, the ground that you have been tending to, those seeds you've sown and have continued to water, you are about to see those fruits. Okay, so this one pertains to that first group where I said this could be a business, like in your work, in the area of work in your life. So this could be a business, a project, ministry. This could be a promise you've been standing for in obedience. In this dream, I was instructed to make a call to let someone know to make last minute revisions or to look over their work and make any adjustments they feel may be needed in order to have their work be in full condition to be presented. So again, this could be a work, like a career, job opportunity. It could be a business opportunity, partnerships, something like of that nature, a project you're working on. Now, on the other hand, for someone or a few people, this is actually your spouse who is approaching or returning. Literally, your king is headed your way. In this dream, I represent Haggai, the keeper of women. He advised Esther throughout her preparation leading up to her being presented to the king. And when that time came, it says Esther only took what Haggai advised. So the women were allowed to request anything they wanted to take, but she only took what Haggai advised her. So when we look at Esther and she went through her beauty treatments, we think about her physical preparations for beauty, getting accustomed to the lifestyle, mannerisms, regulations that would come with the position of a queen, especially being introduced to such a position when she came from the background of being an orphan. But the Lord took me deeper in understanding that our beauty preparations and beautifications also are inward works within our heart. This is also why he used my job in this dream. So we look at the heart. In my job, we look at the heart, monitoring the heart, and in this dream, my coworker and I saw a change. So we detected a change in the rhythm. So it was like a printout of someone's heart, and we could see the heartbeat, the rhythm, and everything about the rhythm was normal except one beat that was irregular. So there was a drop in the heartbeat, which indicated an irregularity, and it was something that needed to be notified of urgently. So this call that I was instructed to make in this dream is a call for someone or a few people to take a look at their heart posture. There may be something there that the Lord has been highlighting or has allowed to come to the surface because he is needing for you to work with him, to allow for him to help you heal and release some things, whether this has to do with your own past or it may have something to do with the past concerning your spouse. There may be some places where forgiveness and healing are needed. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the scriptures, and the Lord gave me two scriptures, and the first one is going to be 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 8, and he's been to be showing me 2:4:8 for a minute. So 2 Timothy 4 verse 8 says, "Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing." And again, that took me back to Stephanie. Like I said, the meaning of that name was a crown or garland, denoting victory, honor, and wisdom. And so the next scripture that the Lord gave me was Esther 2:12, and that's also 2 verse 12 through 18, and 2:12 is also a number that the Lord had been showing me for a long time. So starting at verse 12, "Now when it was each young woman's turn to go before King Xerxes after the end of her 12 months under the regulations for the women, for the days of the beautification were completed as follows: 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with sweet spices and perfumes, and the beauty preparations for women. Then the young woman would go before the king in this way. Anything that she wanted was given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace, In the evening, she would go in, and the next morning she would return to the second harem, to the custody of the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. Now, as for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her in as his own daughter, when her turn came to go to the king, she requested nothing except what Haggai, the king's eunuch and attendant, who was in charge of the women, advised. Now the king loved Esther more than all other women, and she found favor and kindness with him more than all the other virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen in the place of Vashti. So both of those scriptures will be in the description box below. So prepare to be presented. So just take the time to spend time with the Holy Spirit and just allow him to reveal anything to you that he may still need for you to work on, to as those final things that he wants to work with you or work out of you, as it is time to be presented to your spouse, or it is time for you to be presented, or offers to be presented to you in the area of your work. And so test the spirit behind this word, of course, and take this word back to the Lord. Ask the Lord to confirm this word for you, to give you specific, detailed insight and instruction concerning any situation. Share this word with anyone who needs to hear this word, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified of any future uploads when I post, and I will be back soon with another word.